So I'm going to show you the easiest thing you're going to install in your truck that can save your engine. You could be the guy that goes 1,000,000 miles without coming to see Dave. And I'm okay with that because I'm busy. This 6.7 Powerstroke, 900,000. I'm just going to, from here on out, I'm calling it the 1,000,000-mile motor, okay? I mean, you put that many miles on it, let's not be nitpicky. We're going to do something interesting today for my own education. Insane Diesel brought us this motor, and we're going to like measure it before we do any machine work. It was so pristine, I really want to know kind of how much wears on it, because this thing's got over 900,000 miles on it. And in order to take good measurements, I don't want my measuring equipment to get all dirty. We're gonna wash everything real quick, and then we're gonna kind of put the main caps back on it. I wanna check how the bores, how much wear we have on it. The bearings, I mean, look at them. That's 900,000 miles. They look pretty dang good. Same with the rods. You know, they look pretty dang good. Accuracy and thoroughness is what we're after. 892,316, 892,316 miles is what we're looking at here. Pretty amazing so far, but we're gonna get it. We're gonna do a pre-wash on it. Then we're gonna drop these pistons off of and check our wear and our bushings, check our bearing, the thickness up against original. We'll go off of, we've got all our measurements of what it's supposed to be stock here from AERA, Automotive Engine Rebuilders Association. So bear with us, we're gonna wash everything up, and then we'll get down to the nitty gritty, the minute 10,000. This motor went down for a lifter, a roller lifter that went flat on it. We had a couple of them, but I'm going to tell you why these lifters go bad. And I've talked about it before, but if you'll look inside there, you'll see that we have needle bearings in here. And needle bearings are not the best for distributing load. A bushing would be better. It's not uncommon. I'm not trying to slam, you know, I'm not saying Ford didn't build it right. I mean, the thing went 900,000 miles. But the reason that a needle bearing does not distribute load as good as a bushing is, this pin here is the inside, and the little needle bearings in there. And you can see our load is distributed pretty minimal here and here. If we had a bushing inside there, what we'd have is we'd have this, we'd have the bushing surface in here, like this, and then the outside here would be this. And our load would be basically, except for the oil film, would be 100%. It's more like, that's why you'll never find needle bearings on a crankshaft or a rod, because there's so much load, you need all that surface contact there for the oil film to be distributed on. Okay, we've got all the engine valves here. We've disassembled the heads. First thing we want to do is we want to check our guide wear and our valve stem wear. With 900,000 miles, I would expect the guides to be just about whacked and hacked. And the stems, I can tell you the first thing I notice here, a little bit of galling here, very minimal. I can't feel it. They all seem to have a little bit of that. Is that galling or is that laser etching?
That's galling, yeah. So, I mean, and if we want, we could measure
that.
Where it's galled. 0.27. If I go to where it's not galled, 0.0274.
0
is where it's not galled. So the galling is kind of like a material transfer, right? Yeah. So I got my gauge here for the guide set up. It's gauge block set to the diameter of the stem. So we're zeroed on that gauge. So whatever we measure and we see is going to be our clearance between the valve stem and the guide. So we'll go into intake here. And as we go up and down, we got a little over 2,000. It's about 2,000s and 2/10. And when we get close to the chamber, kind of flares out about 2 thousandths and 8 tenths. Now if I go into an exhaust, we'll go from near the valve spring. Got about 2 thousandths, 4 tenths. It's starting to go out. Got quite a bit of guide wear on this one. Almost around 5 thousandths clearance. 5, 5.5, 6. You can see how it tapers out.
Intakes is just spot on.
Nearly dead straight.
Yeah, you could just let that go. So what we're gonna do now is let's measure the cylinder bores for taper.
So this is set for the max of our spec. We have the sheet over there.
Cylinder bore is 3.897 to 3.898.
7 tenths difference, right?
Yeah.
I'm to the 8.3, so 3.8983 is what my gauge is set to.
Okay. The worst wear on a cylinder wall is always going to be on the thrust side, and the thrust side is where the skirt is, and this is called the skirt. And you can actually see a little bit of wear on this coating. Now that is so minimal. Basically, it's just kind of scratched the coating that was on the piston. The piston probably hasn't decreased in its original size at all. And this is the thrust side of the wall. So here and here, it's going to be like this. It won't be here. It'll be here.
Over the spec, we're
over the max spec. So we
8 tenths.
Our zero on this gauge that we set up is 3.8983, which is the max. So we're 8 tenths over.
Then I go about middle. About 9 tenths over. Very bottom.
So the thing has less.
Once we get to the bottom, we're about 0.
So they had that engine.
So
at the bottom, there's
you could even see
where the piston never hit.
Yep.
Yeah. This here, you see the color change from here up is where the piston has been sliding against the wall. From down here to there, the piston never even touches. That's why it looks different. 8 tenths.
8 tenths of wear, and then we could check. So if I go to the side, I mean I got half a thou, which part of that is probably ring wear. Pretty much 0 right there, and you're 0 there. Seeing it taper towards the deck surface.
Let's measure a few more holes and see.
Same thing, half a thou, couple tenths, and about 0.
I'm speculating here, but this secondary filter, because it's a 2 micron, 1 micron, you're absolutely seeing it in the bearings because they're so pristine. But I don't know how you would avoid that. I mean, it's definitely helping the ring wear.
One.
But you know, you still have a diesel has a tremendous amount of ring tension. You know, diesel rings are so heavy. They're thick.
So less
where
wear.
A gas car is, you know, there's no spring tension
2
on it at all.
tenths. Yeah, it's still in spec, but a little under the max. But then if I go
when we tell you about
sideways,
the oil, hopefully you'll understand why they're so big to wear.
2 tenths under.
Yeah,
maybe 2 tenths over.
Got a cleaner combustion.
10th under.
And then the oil
very close.
has things in it.
Let's measure our pistons and see how much wear we have on the.
They call for about.
Why don't you guys pick me the worst piston over there? The worst looking one.
And the best.
Yeah. The worst and the best.
So we got 1 thou and 8 tenths to 3 thou clearance. So, but our bores have wear.
3, 8,
I have 2.
3, 8, 9, 5, 2.
So you'd be.
This is our worst. Yeah, this is the best. Yeah. So this is the best. You can still see the measurement marks where you're supposed to measure. This one's maybe another 10 thou is all. 3, 8, 75 plus 20, 85, 95. 3, 8, 9, 5, 2.
About the same?
About the same. And our worst one? 3895. It's the same. It's 1 or 2. I mean, it's not. I mean, that's just coating.
Yeah, you got coating wear. The piston itself.
The piston hasn't even worn. I mean, the coating.
And based on.
We tear motors down, and the coating will be gone. You know, that abrade. What do they call that coating?
The line-to-line coating is like an abradable coating. Meant to wear off. It's different than what's put on those.
Yeah.
Line-to-line is a special thing to make up clearance where you have excessive.
The coating is unmeasurable almost. It's so thin. Look at
without the wear on those cylinders, if those were in factory spec of diameter, we'd be right in spec on clearance on those pistons. About 2.5 to 3 thousandths clearance. I'll set up a bore gauge.
That would be too loose for me if I was honing that. Because I like my pin to kind of stick. But you can see there's hardly any wear on it. I mean, there's a little bit of there.
With oil, we'll kind of grab it a little.
Oh.
I'll mostly feel, let me see.
That?
Yeah, so I'll mostly feel, they are kind of warm, so that's going to throw it off a little bit. Thing is, I'll feel, you'll almost rarely get any wear this way, as you will straight up and down. So if you take it and try to tip it this way, I feel just a very slight. If I go this way, a little more. I mean, I'll set up a bore gauge and we'll see. So we'll set our bore gauge. The top of spec is about 1/1000 and 1/10. Roughly what I'm getting. I mean, it is warm, so it might be a little excessive.
Down 1/10 max. We like to usually go about 1/2 thou.
Now, the other way, 1/1000, 3/10. So honestly, you got about 2/10 wear on that bushing, which is not too much. I mean, 7.3 Powerstrokes, I'll see a 1/1000th difference one way or the other, and those bushings are wiped out.
But that's not on 900,000 miles.
No. I mean, that's a 7.3, probably 250, 300,000.
The most impressive part of the whole thing is this, honestly. These are the main bearings. There's nothing that takes more abuse in a 6.7 Powerstroke than the main bearings. That is the most common failure in the 6.7. I'm picking the worst bearing here, and I want to say this is probably from us tearing it down. I don't believe that. You know, just so everybody sees that.
And this scoring is that, if that lifter never came apart,
right? This
metal material going all through it.
Whenever you got a bomb or a grenade that goes off inside your motor, and all that metal that came apart, it's got to go somewhere. And that's my guess is that's exactly what this is. But still, and then you've got which one here had this here on the side. I saw this one rod here. Yeah, right. And this here on the side.
That's from the
yeah. I mean, but still, it's pretty amazing. I mean, you can, when you have lines like that, that's something that, okay, now all of a sudden a piece of debris got in there, and it's obvious what the debris is. But as far as, wear from, oil or carbon down in your oil, this motor is as clean as I've ever seen them. This one here, I might take, I'd take a nice razor blade or something, and I'd just knock that down, and I'd feel pretty confident about, doing another pole with them bearings in it. And of course, the crank looks the same way. You'd expect the crank to look the same way.
Yep. So 2.8346. So I'm right in between. So 2.8346. So I'm right in between.
Nothing. Yeah. It's like a brand new crank. Here's the other thing. Let's go look at these rings under a microscope. Let's just go do that. Now you can see the beveled edge on it there. Do you see this bottom part here? You got a little build up on that, but I mean, see that little build up there, but I mean, it's nothing compared to. And then the oil ring, yeah. And I mean, I just rinsed them off. I didn't wash these things. I mean, you can still see. Usually these things are salt. I mean, in a motor that comes down, it's hard to get a motor to go, 300,000 miles, and guys change the oil every, 3,000-4,000 miles, and it still is loose like this. Usually they're just all gummed up. I'm a believer in this secondary bypass. What do you guys call that?
Oil bypass filtration.
Oil bypass. You're just taking a little bit, and you're basically. Have you guys ever figured out how much by how much your flow you're getting in there? You got a 13-quart system.
It's about a quart per minute on the.
Really?
Yep. So every 13 minutes you're going through the system.
Wow, it's working. It's definitely working. I'd put one of them on my truck. Yeah. Wow. It's worth it. We're probably going to have like Cleveite or something. So they could be a little different, a couple of 10,000s. They'll fit the bearings to the crank. The crank will be different. And so when you tear down a motor, it'll have a number on the block, like 1, 2, 3, 4. And it'll have a color on the back side of the bearing. And if you work in a dealership or something like that, and you're just going to put bearings back in it, you got to put that same color bearing back in it. Or you could get a standard bearing that's like, and they go in 2/10 thou difference. And so you'll get a standard bearing like yellow, blue, red, and it'll be yellow will be this size, the blue will be 2 thou thicker, 2/10 thou thicker. It's actually a pretty cool way to fit a crank. Oh, those are Ford. Oh, Molly, you got
these are Ford main bearings.
Bearings?
So
okay, well we can.
That's really our most accurate comparison.
Yeah. 76. 76 too. And because they're not the same one, this is 762. This is 68. There's a half a thou difference on that bearing.
Between the top and bottom.
Mm-hmm. No, between these, and these are coated bearings.
These are performance coated bearing.
So there's like 4/10 to 5/10 thou difference on them, and then a main. That one's actually a little smaller. Eight. It's actually a little thicker.
Really?
Yeah.
That's what I was saying is there's variations in a set of bearings.
They're within 2/10,000s. I mean,
there's not really anywhere.
It's not. Yeah, there's no wear. I get another box. They're going to be 2/10 different.
Yeah.
You understand how close 2/10,000ths of an inch is?
You can't see with your eye.
It's 10 times smaller than your hair's. It's 10 times smaller than the thickness of your hair. 2/10,000ths is 10 times smaller than
hair is 1,000.
About 1,000.
2,000, I thought.
It depends. My hair's thin.
This is 6.
Yeah, beard hair might be that thick. Yeah. Well, I think that if we're here to prove a point, I don't know how we haven't proved it. A secondary oil filter for the cost is probably one of the best investments you can make. That and good oil and a good fuel additive, the best investment you can make for longevity.
Frequent oil changes.
Yeah. Hey, let's start at the top. Intake guides, really no wear at all. Still no taper, no nothing. Exhaust guides, minimal amount of wear. Something I normally see, on these motors at 250,000 miles. This thing's got, 4 times that on it. No bearing wear. I mean, you can see them. Main and rod bearings, pristine. And this thing there's a little bit of scratch on a few of them, but this thing, remember, ate a lifter, so that's debris. But without that debris going through this motor, them bearings, I mean, I'd reuse them. I'd rebuild this motor with those bearings. I wouldn't do that, but if I was in a pinch or a customer, you know, didn't have the money, I could reuse them. Wrist pin bushings, minimal amount of wear, just a little bit. You know, I'd want to put wrist pin bushings in it, but I mean, the thing's got 900,000 plus miles on it. It's unbelievable. Rings, this is the thing that really kind of blew me away. The ring package in this is still so pristine. I mean, I had no sludge buildup in the oil ring or the scraper or anything like that. I mean, pretty phenomenal, to be honest with you. Less than, cylinder wall. Less than, 6.7 Powerstroke. They're compacted graphite block. A lot harder, a lot more sturdy than a regular iron block. It's not like the Duramax where they have the laser, it's not laser, it's induction hardened top of the cylinder wall. They don't wear at all hardly, but I'm amazed. I mean, I have less than 1,000th of taper wall wear from the top to the bottom of that wall, and you always wear more at the top because that's where the compression happens. And the diesel has a tremendous amount of spring pressure. It's not like a gas engine. Diesel rings are 5-6 times thicker and a lot more tension than a gas engine. Basically what I'm trying to tell you is on the thrust side of the cylinder wall, to have less than 1,000th wear, I mean, I was right at 8/10 was the most I could find. To have less than 1,000th wear on a motor that's got close to 1 million miles, I mean, I normally see that on a 150, 200,000 mile motor. I'd jokingly say I wouldn't do this, I'm not saying that, but if a guy was in a pinch and he really needed a job to be done on this as cheap as possible, I'd be looking at a gasket set, obviously. I'd want to put a new ring package in it, but and of course, I got to get a new cam and lifter because that's why the motor went down. If that lifter wouldn't have failed, we wouldn't be having this video. So the secondary oil bypass, I'm a believer in them. They work. This filter, it's got an inlet and an outlet port. The inlet port, you hook to
Pressure port.
A pressure port, maybe an oil pressure sending unit, T into that.
Mm-hmm.
You're gonna put a pressure port into here. It does not, I want to repeat, it does not work like your primary oil filter. This is a trickle filter that is continually circulating oil through it, and it's circulating, you're telling me about a quart every minute?
Yep.
Okay?
Yep.
So on a 13 quart sump, do the math. About every 13, 15 minutes, you're circulating all the oil in that engine through this.
Through a 1 micron
A
filter.
1 micron filter. A 1 micron filter is going to get rid of all the little nasties that are floating around in your oil. And then the outlet, easy enough, whatever kind of truck you got, they've got a nice billet cap. You're gonna pipe a hose right up to that, and it's gonna trickle that oil right back down onto your valve train, where your oil filter or wherever this cap happens to go on your diesel. Couldn't be any easier. This really is a do-it-yourselfer job on the weekend. Or you can come to a guy like me and I can put it on here for you. But I mean, this is just about as easy. They got a nice bracket. They got nice fittings. Look at that. They even got their dang logo on the things. It's pretty cool. Nice, guys.
He put this on within the first couple of months, but
Okay.
he had almost 100,000 miles on it by the time he put this on.
Okay.
And so he wanted to do some cleanup from the first almost 100,000 miles. And so he was changing this filter and his engine filter and the oil every 5,000 miles.
And this is the 1 micron secondary filter.
Yep. So he's changing the 1 micron secondary, the engine filter, and the oil at 5,000 mile intervals for 4 or 5 intervals.
Okay.
And then he changed with the oil sampling, and he was seeing what his samples looked like, and they looked good. And so he went out to 10,000 mile intervals.
At first he's sampling it at 5, then he bumps up to 10,
Yep.
and then I'm sure he bumped it up. How often is he changing is he when he's sampling it, is he changing that? How often is he changing
Every
it?
time on the first, because he wanted to do some residual cleanup.
Okay. I'm trying to get it established here where we finally end up to get a motor to look like.
Yeah. So we're talking about the first 8 intervals after he put the bypass filter on.
Okay.
After that, he's at 15 now. And so he kind of sees what his oil does for 5,000, for 10,000. Now he's changing the engine filter and the oil every 15,000 for a few intervals. And then he goes to 20,000, and then he goes to 25,000.
Get out of here.
And
Really?
he went up to 35,000, and his sample reports, he's shown them all of his sample reports to us, and the oil's still 90% good.
And he's like, but I got to change it because I'm like,
Yeah, he's like, I'm so
Exactly.
scared. So yeah, I'm at 35,000. I got to change this.
So how often do you recommend you change the secondary filter? As often as you change the primary?
If you start from a brand new engine, you can start at the 15,000 mile oil change or intervals. If you have an engine that has a bunch of miles on it, you probably want to do some residual cleanup.
This thing is going to be cleaning up.
Yep, it's going to be
picking up all
that carbon and all the buildup that's in your engine.
Good question. So that's a great question. A lot of people that are watching this have already got trucks that got 100,000 miles on them.
Yep.
Maybe 150,000. So your recommendation?
So those would recommend change this every time you change your oil and your engine filter.
Gotcha.
And then when you after you start sampling and you see what the oil is going to look like, you can kind of tell how far you can go with this.
So you can extend this.
Yep.
You match this filter change with your primary filter.
Yes.
Is that
Yes.
what you mean? Okay.
Yep.
For the first few intervals to get some residual cleanup. Then you can go out to the 15,000 miles.
I've tried to ask the questions you'd all ask, but I know that you guys are going to have some more questions, so put them in the comments, okay? But
Lorenzo's oil.
yeah, tell me about Lorenzo. I got to know the name. Tell me where the name came
So the founder of the company's name is John Lorenzo.
Okay.
He was a tribologist, studied lubrication for 30 years. He developed both of these products before he passed away. And so this is what he's been testing in the industrial commercial world for years.
Did you know the man?
Yeah,
He did.
Yep, he was
Wow.
my partner.
Oh, okay.
We've seen the results in the industrial commercial world with these, but his idea was to bring it to the consumer world, where anybody with a pickup or a car can get the same benefits out of this.
So he was, and the industrial world is like mining.
Yep, mining, the trucking
construction.
company.
Yeah, sure. Okay.
Yep. So the Lorenzo's oil is a tier 4 full synthetic oil mixed with a industrial grade add pack, and then it has a WS2 topper on it. And the WS2 is tungsten disulfate. And what the tungsten does is when the engine gets up to 180 degrees, it adheres to all the moving parts inside of the engine, creating a sacrificial layer that can be worn off as the engine's running over time.
So you're a microscope guy, right?
Yeah.
What does the surface of your metal look like? Does it look like this?
No.
Under a microscope? It looks like this,
Yes.
right? So this tungsten disulfide, it acts almost like the ceramic coat you put on a paint.
It's a surface modifier.
It's a surface modifier. So it fills all these holes and it makes it to where it's smoother and reduces the friction inside of your engine.
Yeah. Every metal surface under a microscope is not like smooth like glass. It has valleys and peaks in it. And those valleys are important for retention of oil. I mean, in the cylinder wall, and I've spoken about that. Is that what you're talking
And
about?
it's more of putting the coating on top of the styrations and in the valleys,
Yeah.
but it fills them in a little bit so that as it rides on it, anytime that during startup or
And I'm
whatever,
sure
when
you
the
guys
metal's
have done
touching.
testing on. They've done testing on this. For
Yeah.
friction.
Yeah.
Cool. Okay.
So that what they've seen in the friction is a 60% reduction in friction. So, and some of them gone to like 0. You test the engine pre-tungsten, after tungsten, they can't even measure friction in it.
So once it gets up to 180 degrees, does it do that continually, or does it do that the one time?
Continually until there is no more nano tungsten left in the oil.
Okay.
But it has like the healing also. So if you got a part that's rubbing really hard and it's creating a groove, it'll go to that part first and adhere in there first, because that's the part that gets hot, the 180 degrees first.
Okay. Cool.
So-
Pricing comparable to
Pricing comparable.
Amsoil. Everybody knows Amsoil.
So
is
we
pricing-
recommend 15,000 mile oil changes with our bypass filter on
Yes.
this. If you consider that, it's about the same price as T6.
And let me tell you, these guys are big proponents. They've been spouting here while I've been working with them. Oil analysis. They
Yes.
prophesy that, which I totally agree with. Just to recap: use the Lorenzos, put the secondary bypass filter on there, go 15,000 miles, have an oil analysis done. Did I get that right?
Nope.
If that's a brand new engine.
If it's a brand new engine.
Okay.
Yes,
do
yes,
that.
you got that
Okay.
correct.
If you have an old engine,
Uh-huh.
start at 5.
Okay.
Change this.
Because that's going to get. That's going to start picking
Picking up all the
sludge and
sludge
crunch.
and-
All
Yep,
the stuff
yep.
that's collected in your engine for the first however many miles you had on it.
Gotcha.
So change the bypass filter cartridge
And the primary.
and your engine spin-on filter,
Right.
or cartridge, whichever one it
Right.
is. 5,000
For 4 intervals.
for 4 intervals.
Okay. Don't even
4 times.
waste your time on an oil analysis.
I mean, you can still analyze the oil every 5,000 miles to see what you're trending,
Uh-huh.
and you can watch the numbers go down
Cast
of
off.
running this
Okay.
for 4 intervals.
Okay.
This is not
Yeah.
a throw everything perfect.
Right. I like that.
We
though.
can work this.
I like that. You're saying, okay, if you've got a used engine, 5,000 miles, do it 4 times every 5,000.
Bump up to double, and
Gotcha.
then
Start
again until you're sampling you can see how far you can go.
Well, that's worth the money if you can get 25, 30,000 miles
Yeah.
out of an oil change. And
It
feel
pays for
comfortable.
itself real quick when you're doing that.
Yeah.
So
Wow. Okay. And what else? We got something else here. You know, I'm a big fuel additive. You guys know it. Dave's Secret Sauce, which is an OptiLube formulation, which is the best formulation. You look up the, these guys will believe in it too. They'll tell you that it is.
we've seen it.
We've seen it.
Yeah, it is.
I've used it.
It is the best diesel fuel additive you can have for lubricity, anti-gels, and cleaners.
So it is a combustion modifier. Is that what we're calling this?
Combustion improver.
Combustion improver. It's a polymer-based fuel additive, and those polymers encapsulate and equalize size of your particulates of fuel. They encapsulate it. They keep it from sticking to your cylinder walls, your piston, your head, and they keep it entrained in the air and equally sized. So you get a more
Well, you're talking about
complete-
atomization of fuel.
Yes, it makes the atomization of the fuel more uniform.
Okay, here's the question. I'm going to ask it for you, so you don't even have to put it in the comments. Testing. Have you had the testing done?
Some testing done with an infrared camera that actually shows when the combustion happens. All of those molecules were very close to all the same size. They burned to the same time frame and same temperature. The other testing that we've done is the emissions. And on emissions, this will reduce hydrocarbons 90% at idle, 63% under load. And so that's the biggest thing. You're getting
And
a complete burn
hydrocarbons,
hydrocarbons.
that's unburned fuel.
Unburnt fuel.
Unburned fuel.
Yeah.
The 900,000 mile motor, was he using this?
He was using this from the time it hit the market. He was using another additive similar to OptiLube's prior to that, and then with this. So
And then
this
additive.
additive works really great with the OptiLube additives and some of the other lubricity and cetane
And
improvers.
you guys, the video on that motor, there's not a lot of carbon ingestion. I mean, those pistons are pretty dang clean. Those rings are phenomenal. And so
And so with emissions reductions, right? Hydrocarbon reduction. What does that do for your DPF?
well, it doesn't load it up.
It doesn't load it up.
And the other thing
It lasts
doesn't load
longer.
So that's the other testing we've done. It reduces the regens by 63% as well.
Let me tell you what else will reduce that. Ready? Don't idle your truck for too long. It's cold.
That helps when it's cold. Yes, when it's
I had to
cold.
throw that in there. You guys know what I'm talking about?
I know.
I'm talking about cold
Yes,
startup, man.
cold startup.
Do not start your diesel truck up cold and just let it sit there and warm up island. That does not work. That is a
It
bad,
pumps out a lot of hydrocarbons into your DPF.
and plus it burns. It puts a lot of carbon down into your ring pad.
Yep.
If you don't believe my results, I'm sorry, I can't help you.
Look at that 900,000 mile engine. He's used fuel additive in every single tank.
Yeah.
The CP4 pump went to 900,000.
Yes, that's
In
the
that same
CP4
truck.
pump.
This is mostly for combustion.
Yes.
Yeah, well, if you want any of these great products, and I would suggest you get them all, man, for your truck. It's gonna save you money in the long run. There's a link in the description, and Insane Diesel, thank you, man. It's been a real pleasure.
Thanks a lot, Dave.
Seriously, guys, thank you.
Appreciate it, Dave.
All right. Any other comments or questions? You know where you got to put them, man.